is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball. Major League.
It's time for Past Our Prime, and on the cover today of the April 19th, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated, one of the greatest golfers of that time, Raymond Floyd, after capturing the green jacket and winning the Masters. Mark Hoffman is here, as is Bill Mahoney. And Bill, Mark is not wearing a green jacket, but he is wearing pants. That's what we call progress.
I'm not
We've come a long way in 3 years, from the naked days, to now. I think we're actually headed in the right direction.
Yeah,
I just feel I need to bear it all on this podcast. So,
You're nuts, buddy.
Yeah.
My name is Scott Johnson, and guys, we talk about bucket lists pretty often, and I may have asked this question before in the past. I don't remember much of anything these days. Does the Masters ever make that list for either of you? Mark, does that something? And, Mark, you used to travel a lot for CBS Sports. The Masters has been on CBS for forever, but I guess that was never one of the ones you got to go to.
No. We had a small period of time, like in the early 90s, where CBS had every major sport like baseball, football, basketball. So I would travel to big events like that, the NBA Finals, the World Series, stuff like that, Super Bowls. But I never went to the Masters. And in terms of a bucket list, if you said to me, "Hey, you've got an opportunity to go to the Masters, would you like to go?" I said, "Am I paying for it?" No, no, we'll cover all your expenses. I'm there because I want to experience it. But if you told me I got to fork out the money, no, it's not like something I have to do. It's not on my bucket list.
So it's not something that interests you. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Wouldn't be necessarily a finance thing. It just going to see golf doesn't do much for me. Billy, for you, I got to think you're more of a Phoenix Waste Management type of guy.
Yeah, that'd be true. If I was going to go to a golf tournament, that would be the one to go to. It'd be nowadays more just to watch the other people make buffoons out of themselves. But back in the day, I would have been that buffoon. So let's be right. I mean, I'd have been thrown out. There'd be no question.
What? That would have been just a waste management of time.
Exactly. Thank you, their pun master, Mark.
You're welcome.
Masters though. No, I'd rather go to like the Daytona 500 or the Indy 500.
Yeah, a little more speed.
Yeah, I think that'd be more fun. But I mean, I think I'm in Mark's camp. You want to pay for it and send me there? Oh, I'll go. But if you're asking me to fork out the money, no.
One thing I was looking at is the price of things on the menu at the concessions at the Masters. So before I get to that, Mark, you're a movie guy, but you're also a plant-based food guy.
Yeah.
I feel like a bucket of theater popcorn might kill you. And if the popcorn didn't, the price would. Tell me what it costs for a bucket of popcorn and a large soda these days at the theater.
I think they do package deals. It must be like around $25 or something like that. I think is it AMC that does, like, on certain days, I think they'll do a package where you can get like a small popcorn and a small Coke for maybe $9 or something like that. But I mean, when I was a kid, a ticket to the movie cost $3 and popcorn was maybe a buck or two with the hot tops.
Yeah. Now the popcorn's almost as much as the ticket.
Well, I went through a period where I would not eat movie theaters because I worked in a movie theater out of high school, my first year or two of college, and I saw what we did, like when they delivered the popcorn and we had to put it in the back room and we'd step all over it. And I also saw, oh yeah, and the CO2 tanks for the Cokes, and you see all that syrupy stuff,
Yeah.
and it turned me off from theater food for a while.
But then you forgot about it and went back to eating it?
No, occasionally if I like to share a little popcorn, if I'm in that
Yeah,
mood.
Mark and I've gone to movies. There may be a small popcorn involved, but usually it's when one of us has a deal on the popcorn, like $5 off.
And I won't get a drink either,
Yeah.
Maybe it's a small popcorn or just bring nuts or something, something healthy.
Now, Billy, we just spent a month in Arizona for spring training baseball, exhibition baseball, and the prices there versus the Masters is still exorbitant. What did you see out that way? I know you went looking to get a souvenir for your little one.
And I wanted to get her uh, either a spring training shirt or a Shohei Ohtani, the little teeny little shirt they have with the buttons in the front. So I went looking for the spring training shirt first. $49. $49. And I thought, for a growing kid, I'm not going to do that because if she grows a little bit, then I'm stuck with a $50 shirt that's not being used. So I thought the Shohei Ohtani one, maybe I'll get her a little bigger size and she can grow into it. It was $90. And I thought, man, I'd be great to get her in that shirt, but $90.
Crazy. If you go to the Masters, they have sandwiches for $1.50. Their classic pimento cheese or their egg salad sandwich, which they've been serving for forever. $1.50 for those sandwiches. Those are the top selling sandwiches. They have not changed that price since 2002. If you want a little more, you want a little meat in your sandwich, you can get a pork barbecue sandwich or the Masters Club chicken salad, ham and cheese on rye, or a classic chicken salad. That's going to cost you, though. That's $3. Okay.
Wow.
Now, you want a snack? You can get a banana for $1.25. You can get some chips for $1.50, or some cookies, chocolate chunk or oatmeal raisin, $1.50. They have a Masters candy bar for $2.25. They have a Georgia peach ice cream sandwich. That's also $3. That's a big ticket item. Blueberry muffin, $2. Some fresh mixed fruit, $2.50. You want a breakfast sandwich or chicken biscuit in the morning? That's going to run you $3. Now, a beer. What does a beer cost at Dodger Stadium? Do you guys know?
$18. No, it's at SoFi
double
Stadium.
digits.
It's 18. At SoFi Stadium, it's $18.
All right. Well, here it's the most expensive thing on the menu. It's $6 for a beer.
Oh,
Whether it's domestic, import, white wine, little cocktail, $6 across the board. No, nothing for $4, nothing for $9, $6. So
Wow.
if you bought one of every item on the board, which I think totals up to like 16 things, it'd be $72.
wow.
Wow.
That's less than a ticket to the spring training games.
Yeah, that's right. I remember last year when Mark was with us, we went to go to a Rockies game. I don't remember who
Yep.
they were playing, but it was Rockies. And yeah, the cheapest ticket was like $75.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
No, thank you.
No, exactly. Exactly. Wow.
uh,
And to this day, the Masters still sells all those things for that price.
yeah,
Dang. I
that's
know you said that. I just wanted to, reaffirm that. Dang, that'd be great.
And of course, I can't eat any of that stuff
I
because
know
all
you
of it is
can't.
either cheese or meat. So
You
I'm
can eat the
screwed.
salad.
yeah. They
Chicken
have
salad?
a plant-based sandwich, Mark, where
Okay.
it's nothing and it costs $3. They just hand you a napkin.
Just straight air.
They have you hand you a wrapper and you have to eat the wrapper.
That's probably better for you.
Probably. Sure, that
Hey,
wrapper hasn't been processed.
let's get into the issue and start like we have for the last couple weeks with movie talk. And this is about a guy. It's one thing to climb Mount Everest, but how about skiing Mount Everest? But Billy?
Yeah, that's a Japanese skier Yuichiro Miura in 1970. I don't even know how you come up with this idea, but he decided he was the first man to do it, to ski down Mount Everest. But man, the guy wasn't done. At 80 years old in 2013, he became the oldest person to summit Mount Everest. He also did ski runs at one point in time on all 7 summits. This is from a kid that had tuberculosis and pleurisy as a child. Yeah, pretty good.
Wow.
But I want to see the documentary to see how you get the skis up there and you start coming down. That's not something on my bucket list there either.
Yeah, I think it
I'd be
won an Oscar, right? The
Yes, it
documentary
did.
on
Yeah,
him.
yeah, it did.
Um,
And
yeah,
it is on YouTube.
very interesting.
and one wrong turn and man, you'll get down that mountain real fast.
What happened to Mark?
He's at the bottom already.
The scorecard said we'll take it
You
higher.
know who else was a thrill seeker? Was as we get to the scorecard, fans of the Kansas City Scouts, Bill.
Well, you better be. You better love your hockey because the Kansas City Scouts stunk back in 1975, 76. Get this. They just had one win in their final 44 games. And to go a little deeper, they beat the Capitals 5-1 on the 7th of February, 1976. They never won another game. They were 0-21-6 the rest of the year. Boy, this is just a bad team.
Oh,
Wow. I just love the franchise, the history of the franchise, because they then become the Colorado Rockies, and then they became the New Jersey Devils and had a lot of success.
they did. Mark, tell me about the Dodgers and their revolving door at third base.
Well, so Ron Say is going to start at third base for the Dodgers on their opening day against the Giants. He becomes the first LA Dodger, not talking Brooklyn, LA Dodgers, to start at third base 3 years in a row. Because before that, they were just a whole bunch of guys, when they moved over. Dick Gray was their third baseman 1 year, Jim Baxis, Tommy Davis even started 1 year at third base, Ken McMullen, John LeFevre, John Kennedy, just a slew of people, they played third base. But then, Ron came around and a former guest on Past Our Prime, and he started 10 straight years at third base for the Dodgers. And since then, they've had some more continuity there. They had Adrian Beltre started at third base, looks like 2, 4, 6, about 7 years in a row at third base. And then, Justin Turner started at third base, looks like about 7 years in a row. And now Max Muncy. So there has been some continuity since those days.
Two things that jumped out at me. Ken McMullen started at third for the Dodgers in 1963 and then again in 1973.
Oh.
And they're
Crazy.
they're starting third baseman in 70 and 71, Steve Garvey.
Yeah. Garvey
Wow.
originally played third base before they moved him to first base. That's true.
Say would start in 74, go through 1982, played in 1,469 games at third base for LA, by far the most of anyone to ever do that. The Penguin, a 6-time All-Star and co-MVP of the 1981 World Series. He turned into quite a third baseman.
Back when
Sure
quotes
did,
were
the big one.
bold, they said it.
They said it, Bill. Down goes Frazier.
I was just about to say that. This is Joe Frazier before managing the Mets. How the hell is a man my age to get excited? I think he was 55.
Ah,
And then the next year it really was. Down goes Frazier.
Mark, what about Judd Heathcote, who always looked like he was in his late 80s?
I know, he looked distressed all the time. He's the new Michigan State coach on his priorities in his new job. The first thing you do is panic. From there, you go to work. Well, he did a pretty good job of panicking over the years. He was the head coach at Michigan State from 1976 to 1995. Took him to the NCAA tournament 9 times in a row. And do you know who succeeded him as head coach at Michigan State?
Was it Izzo?
Izzo.
Tom Izzo. So
Yeah.
Michigan State has had 2 coaches, 2 men's basketball coach in the last 50 years. That's crazy.
Yeah. They both they're
pretty good.
they're in the
Yeah.
they're like in the elite, what the Sweet 16 like every year it seems.
Right. And Judd was Magic Johnson's coach.
Yep.
So
That's right. Doug Swift, veteran NFL linebacker, on the most enjoyable part of football. He says, being introduced and running through the goalposts. It's all downhill after that. So, poor Doug. It was Ray all the way. Raymond Floyd dominated the Masters with a record-tying 271, 17 under par, winning by 8 strokes and breaking multiple tournament records. I think that number held up until Tiger in, what was it, 97, when Tiger blew that out of the...
Like 18 strokes over everybody.
Right. A wire-to-wire win, but after the first round, Billy, there was someone right behind him. Andy North was right there. How did Andy finish?
Well, so he's 1 stroke behind. Raymond Floyd's at 7 under. Andy North's at 6 under. So you're thinking, man, this could get good. Andy North's a pretty great golfer himself. Well, second round, he shot a +9, then a +3, then a +4. He finished 37th at +10. So the final 3 rounds weren't kind to Mr. North.
Yeah. They're looking at the leaderboard. They're like, North went south, I think.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Go west, young man.
You
Yeah.
stole my pun. I was thinking of it.
His performance was so overwhelming, that was Raymond Floyd, that it removed suspense early. There was never a serious challenge on Sunday, so they were all kind of vying for second place. Gentle Ben Crenshaw, he did pretty well.
Yeah, he came back with her final round 67 to actually jump ahead of Jack Nicklaus for second place.
He would go on to win at least one Masters, I know. And Floyd's victory marks a turning point in his career. He would go on to have a Hall of Fame career. And in fact, Mark, 10 years later, he was still at the top of his game.
He sure was. I mean, he won 4 majors. His first was a 69 PGA championship. He would win it again in 82. And then the Masters in 76 was the only time he won that green jacket. But in 1986, 10 years later, he won the US Open. He was 43 years old and 9 months. At that time, he became the oldest US Open champion. Now, Hale Irwin would break that record in 1990. He was 45 when he won it. But I remember Raymond Floyd winning that US Open in 86. It was a big deal then.
Yeah, yeah. And Bill, Hale Irwin's on line 2 for you right now.
Yes, I'm still waiting. I said they will get back to me. Oh, I'm sitting by my phone every time it rings. Ben or Hale, excuse me, Hale, is that you? I think I'm breaking him down.
Rookie cards of baseball, basketball, and football stars are iconic pieces of American history, and they have been outstanding investments over the last 50 years. Now, key issues of Sports Illustrated, professionally graded and encapsulated by CGC, have emerged as an exciting alternative to trading cards. ThePit.com is the leading online exchange for investment-grade sports magazines. General Manager Mark Humphreys offers Sports Illustrated first cover editions featuring stars like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., and so many more. Raymond Floyd is the cover man of the April 19th, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated, and the CEO of ThePit.com, Mark Humphreys, is here to tell us about this particular issue and its value in the world of collectibles. Mark.
Yes, Raymond Floyd had a record-setting, or at least record-tying, 1976 Masters. He won easily by 8 strokes. He tied Nicklaus's record of 271 that had been set in 1965. And so as a result, this issue is quite significant. The record score for 72 holes would not be broken until Tiger Woods did it in 1997, which of course was another very historic event. And in reading about it, I was really blown away by the fact that Floyd played the par fives for the first 3 days, every one of them under par. He had 11 birdies and an eagle through 3 days on the par fives. So he opened up a big lead, and this Masters was not in question for very long. There is some collector interest in this issue, not a huge amount, but I'm optimistic for the future because Sports Illustrated did a terrific job during this period and afterwards of covering the winner of almost every Masters tournament. They were putting them on the cover, and therefore it's possible to put together a collection that represents golf history around that event, which golf fans look forward to so passionately. And this, as a record-tying performance, would be a big part of that. I know I've been collecting personally nice high-end newsstand graded copies of the Masters champions. I don't yet have this one in my collection, but I would certainly pursue it if I found one in a grade of 8.5 or higher. This was Floyd's first cover, but he had another cover. He was 33 years old at the time. He's 83 years old today. And his second cover came with his final major tournament victory. That was the 1986 U.S. Open victory. And that one's a special one for him because the headline is "Way to Go, Dad." He's posing with his young daughter, who looks to be maybe 7 years old or so, and they're both holding the U.S. Open trophy after that victory. That was his fourth and final major title. He was 43 years old when he won that one. And he we talked last week about Joe Morgan. Raymond Floyd had an amazing span of a career as well. He won major tournaments in 3 decades because he won the PGA in 1969, and then this Masters in 76, and as I mentioned, the U.S. Open in 1986. I suppose if there were more female sports collectors, that final cover with his daughter might be more popular. As it turns out, guys just usually want the champion himself holding the trophy. I've noticed that. So this 1976 cover is probably the most collectible Raymond Floyd cover. And as a piece of that Masters history, it would play a big part in any major tournament Sports Illustrated collection.
Only thepit.com offers competitive buy now and sell now quotes on graded magazines online, as well as many of the most popular modern PSA graded rookie cards, including Shohei Ohtani, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Nikola Jokic, and Steph Curry. Trade sports stars like stocks at thepit.com. A giant step in the right direction. The San Francisco Giants opened the 1976 season with a vibrant and, get this, well-attended 4-2 win over the Dodgers at Candlestick Park, defying expectations after months of uncertainty. Mark, the franchise had nearly relocated, possibly to Toronto.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Horace Stoneham, who was the owner, in 76 put the team up for sale. And in January, he'd actually agreed to sell the team. Well, get this, okay, to a Toronto group consisting of Labatt's Brewery. But how much do you think he was going to sell the team for? Which is crazy because
$3 million.
There are utility infielders that make more money than this. 13.25 million. Okay. And they were going to move the team to Toronto. So there would have been no Blue Jays, or the Blue Jays would have been in the National League. But it didn't happen. And instead, Bob Lurie led a group to buy it from Stoneham. And then Lurie tried to sold the team in '92 to Tampa Bay investors. But there was at one point in time when they were trying to move the team to Toronto that the mayor of San Francisco, Joe Moscone, stepped in and helped, broker a deal to keep the team in San Francisco.
On-field key contributions from players like John the Count Montefusco, Bobby Mercer, and Gary Matthews powered that opening day victory. The new ownership sparked renewed enthusiasm seen in large crowds that hadn't been seen in years because, Bill, for years, they had horrible attendance, but this year kind of marked a turning point.
It did. 1975, they had the MLB's worst attendance at just over 500,000 people. And things started out well. Opening day, over 37,000 people. So you're thinking, great. So Bill Rigney, their manager, says, it's a new show here, but the act better be good. Well, they finished 74 and 88, the Giants did, and the crowds remained inconsistent. The last game of the year, last home game of the year for the Giants, there was 15,000 people in the house. Now, the 5 prior home games, total just over 14,000. That included 3 games against the Dodgers. So they didn't get that much better toward the end of the year.
It brings meaning to the saying, good seats available.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yikes. At long last, it's crunch time as the 76 NBA playoffs begin. Several big market stars and teams are sitting at home. That includes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Pete Maravich, Walt Frazier. And because of that, Mark, ratings not so good.
No, the NBA Sunday ratings were down 28% from the prior year. People forget. You look at the NBA now as a cash cow, but from the mid to late '70s, it was a struggling league, tape delaying the NBA Finals on the West Coast, and it was Magic and Bird in '79 that just saved the league and turned it all around.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting? I was thinking, what happens if only one of them were available? Let's say there was never a Larry Bird or there
Yeah.
was never a Magic Johnson. I don't think the fact that the league became popular because there were these two great players, which created this rivalry. If you had just one of them, it's not the same.
I I totally agree. I think the geographical nature of the rivalry, you had the
Hmm.
East Coast and the West Coast, kind of like
Hmm.
everyone in between.
And Lakers
Um,
Celtics.
Lakers,
Yeah,
Celtics. Yeah, it was just
the history. Yeah.
perfect storm.
But
Perfect
you
storm.
also take into account that you get three of the greatest players in the NBA in 5 years, like a 5 year period, because Jordan came in '84.
Yep.
That's what I
Right.
think when Bird and Magic were there, they raised the NBA, and then Jordan took it to another level, and that's what I think really the NBA took off, because that's when I watched it with Magic, and then Jordan made me watch all the time.
Yeah, I was just talking with someone the other day, and really not to once again be like, oh, back in our day, but 80s NBA was, to borrow a phrase, it was fantastic.
Yeah, remember that commercial?
It was so good, man. Not,
Every game, no matter what team you watched, it was a fun, upbeat league, man.
yeah, it really was. Like I said, Bill, it wasn't necessarily who was in the playoffs, but who wasn't in it. The Lakers with Kareem, and they still are on the outside looking in.
Yeah, that's a surprising thing, 'cause I don't think the Lakers expected that when they acquired Kareem.
Yeah, but again, Kareem needed Magic. He gets Magic, and they're elite.
Exactly.
Remember the Lakers with Kobe were struggling in the late 2000s, and then they make the trade for Paul Gasol, and then they become
Yeah.
an elite team. So you need that. What is it, the Robin to your Batman, or however you want to phrase it?
Yep.
You need those stars. Like today in the NBA, everyone raves about Victor Wembanyama, and he is a game changer. But if you don't have a Steph Castle on that team, if you don't have these young players, Dylan Harper and Darren Fox, they aren't that kind of team. They're a playoff team, but not an elite team.
Now, Bill, the Lakers didn't make the playoffs here in 76, but since then they've been in the playoffs pretty frequently.
Yeah, they have. They've over the next 28 years, the Lakers did make the playoffs. They went 27-1. They missed the playoffs one time in 28 years. But they also had 8 titles and 14 times they were in the finals. That's called dominance right there.
Hey, 1976 was the year of Jaws, biting the hand that feeds them. Sports Illustrated has an article on an aquarium that educates visitors with its impressive collection of large ocean creatures, boosted by the public shark fascination after that movie by Steven Spielberg. The author of the article dives into the aquarium's massive giant ocean tank surrounded by sharks, giant sea turtles, barracudas, and a 400-pound, what's it called? A Jewfish?
Yeah, Jewfish.
Wow, that sounds like Mark.
What
It
did you
does.
say?
I think
What
Mark
did you
was down. He was
say?
a little heavier than.
What did you got?
Billy, this sounds insane.
Yeah, it does. And it was the thing that got me about this article was Rick Tillander, who was an SI writer, actually went down into that tank with two obviously guys that knew what they were doing to make sure he was safe. And he fed some of those animals. And there are some of those mammals, I guess they'd be called, or fish. But the thing that got me was that sometimes sea turtles are more dangerous than sharks. Who knew?
Wow.
The piece ends with the eerie realization that if the sharks truly wanted to kill him, there would be little he could do to stop them.
Mhm.
Gosh, that's a fun thought.
Right?
Have you got going back to turtles? Have you guys ever been around a big sea turtle?
No.
In Virgin Islands, one of the last months I was there, a guy took us out on his boat. And in the Virgin Islands, you can see down to the bottom like 15, 18, 20 feet. So I'm swimming and I see a big turtle and he's right underneath me. So I tried, oh, maybe I can just touch him. He was like 15 feet down. I couldn't get to him. He kept going farther and farther down. But looking back, I could have been killed by a sea turtle.
There was a 12-page pullout here on the Kentucky Derby, and one of the things that I found fascinating, Bill, was how fast animals go, in particular thoroughbreds.
Okay, let me ask you guys, how fast do you think an antelope runs?
Antelope, they go in the 40-mile-an-hour range.
Oh,
And
Mark, how fast do you think cheetahs go?
how fast did they go?
55 miles per hour.
Woo!
And how fast do cheetahs go?
Well, definitely
Cheetahs.
faster.
Cheetahs got to be faster than an antelope. That's why antelopes run from cheetahs.
And they lose.
You know why? You know why they're faster?
Huh.
Because they cheetah.
Yeah. All right. That's perfect for the editing portion of the show.
But cheetahs run 65 miles per hour.
Oh, wow.
But a thoroughbred horse, now these are in short bursts I'm talking about, but a thoroughbred horse over distance runs 36 to 37 miles per hour. So, in essence, the horse is the fastest sustained runner.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. I mean, you're talking about a mile and a half or so for these races.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what a cheetah would do over that stretch.
If you're being chased by a cheetah, the key is to be able to run more than 100 yards.
At least 66 miles per hour, yes.
Yeah, because then they'll tire themselves out and have to stop.
Now, I would watch that show. Mark, go.
So here's what it is. The cheetah starts at the beginning. Mark starts at the 3/4 point.
Right.
Yes.
And you go, if you make it, there's $1 million. If not, you're food.
No, Mark.
I turn around and kick that cheetah's ass, man. One right cross.
You know what's
and it's
always,
down.
you guys ever hear this? You know, like it's the same thing when people go, what does it taste like? And everything tastes like chicken.
Yeah.
This is the same thing that happens with animals. They go, yeah, well, you can't outrun a crocodile. You know how fast those things are? And they're like, oh, yeah, crocodiles are so fast. I'm like, what? Why is a crocodile fast? Or they say like, you know, oh yeah, if a hippopotamus comes your way, you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Those things are so fast. I'm like, how the F is a hippopotamus fast? They're all fast. My God, they're fast because they're running from these damn cheetahs.
Yes.
You know they're fast because they're faster than you. That's why.
Well, that's not saying much. They could put me at the finish line and the cheetah.
Scott, you got to run 50 feet or you're dead.
Go, Scott. A devil of a series. The Arizona State Sun Devils baseball swept Arizona Wildcats baseball in a high-stakes, top-ranked series. ASU's comeback wins highlighted their explosive offense and toughness, including a two-time #1 draft pick off this ASU team, Billy.
Yeah, Floyd Bannister. He was 9-1 with a low ERA. He averaged 14 strikeouts per game. Dude could pitch, so he became the #1 overall pick by the Astros in '76. The year before, he was picked by the A's. But what I liked about Floyd is he did something or said something that you never would hear nowadays. He says, after being picked by the Astros, I just hope the pros don't push me too fast, he said. I don't want to blow my confidence. I hope they put me in AA or whatever, or wherever I really belong. I brought my voice down for that. So it's like, hey guys, just be good to me. Come on. Remember Todd Van Poppel came out and said he was going to be in the Hall of Fame. And they got years before you got Floyd saying, you just put me in AA and I'll work my way up. That's not nowadays.
And Bannister had a long career in the majors. I mean, he had a losing record in the majors. He was like 134 and 143, but from 77 to 92, that's a long time. Because if you're a lefty, you can pitch for a long time, except for like a short stint in Japan. Yeah, he was pitching the Astros, Mariners, Royals, White Sox. I mean, a lot of teams.
Just mention it, Mark. Just mention it.
Angels.
With the Angels. That's the only team he didn't win a game with in his career.
Yeah. But
I saw
speaking of winning, when he was at Arizona State, they were the #1 team in the country. They, I think, were 38-7 at the time of this article, and they were taking on the #2 team in the country, Arizona. Those were baseball powerhouses. I mean, Barry Bonds went to Arizona State. You know,
Reggie Monday,
Odie McDowell, I believe. I mean, there's so many. You know,
I think
Rick Monday,
Reggie Jackson, right?
Yeah, I said Reggie Jackson, Rick Monday,
Sal Bando.
And Mark, thanks for glossing over my Angels thing.
You know, I didn't want to cause you more pain.
Yeah.
A pack that hopes to be picked. Short track speed skating proved it's basically NASCAR on ice, fast, chaotic, and one bad move away from a full body slide into the wall. They want to become an Olympic sport, which I think they did finally in 1992. For now, it was just an exciting sport, still waiting for it to become more than just a demonstration sport come Olympic time. But this just reminded me, guys, of what we've been going through the last couple days here, and that's Olympic ticket sales on sale here in Los Angeles for the Olympics coming up in 2 summers. And both you guys got some stuff, right, Mark?
Yeah, we did. We actually have beach volleyball, my favorite cricket, because I'm a big cricket guy, Um, can't wait for that, Go India. But yeah, I mean the big sports, forget it, man. You'd have to give your mortgage up.
We got flag football, beach volleyball, track and field, and a swimming one as well. No medal rounds, but we did get the early rounds of it, which is fine.
Right. Because like I say, you'd have to put, Callie up for sale in order to get those
Yes,
later
yes.
rounds. Yeah.
But she would pull a very nice price.
She would.
would.
She would.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I wanted to get, because we have guests, so the guests we have on this show, Jenny Chandler, the 3 meter high dive. I wanted that one. That was like $800. And then Sheila Young did the velodrome. That was like $700. And the speed skating was, I don't know, it was 900. And I just thought,
Wow.
God, I realized that those sports would be so expensive.
Yeah, it's insane. And the beach volleyball is at a beach?
Yes,
Long Beach.
in Long Beach.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Mark, you can get your hair cut.
Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
she's still there.
Or Mark can go play.
Yeah.
I can go by my grandparents' old house in
That's
Belmont
right.
Shores.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes,
Yes.
born just before Thomas Jefferson.
The Pony Express. Don't take me too much.
Getting chilled by a very slight draft. The NFL draft used to matter. Now it's being upstaged by free agents getting paid like oil barons, led by Larry Zonka cashing in big. Where did he end up again after the World Football League is no more?
New York Giants.
Did he become the highest salary giant in team history with that deal?
Yes. Yes.
That's nuts.
Big name moves, including Calvin Hill and Paul Warfield, made the draft feel like an opening act that no one stayed for because all these trades and free agent signings, Bill. Like, give me an example. Give me Jim Plunkett.
Okay, Jim Plunkett. England trades Jim Plunkett to the Niners, 2 first-round picks in 76 and a first and second in 1977. Basically, Plunkett fails in San Francisco. He basically blows out in 2 years, goes to the Raiders. We know what happened there. But the Patriots get Tim Fox, who had 17 interceptions in 6 years with the Patriots. They get Raymond Claiborne, who spent 15 years as a Patriot, and Horace Ivory, who had 11 touchdowns 1 year. I think the Patriots won that deal.
Yeah.
But I'm saying those are guys that you get those 4 draft picks, and you turn them into those 4 key players for a team. That's some damn good drafting.
Yeah, and then the NFL, that's how you win, man. That's those great Cowboys teams of the 90s, they were all built by Jimmy Johnson and the drafts those Cowboys teams had.
But other teams don't do that. We did that thing we talked about, the Bears and the Steelers, their drafts. And the Steelers were getting everybody, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, and the Bears got nobody in their first-round picks. It really just comes down to who's drafting and who knows, and probably a little luck as well.
For sure. In a kingdom by the sea, Seattle opened the kingdom in style, packing a record crowd to watch the New York Cosmos. And let's be honest, Bill, Pele beat the Seattle Sounders.
Bastard. Well, I'm sorry. He beats everybody, man. He scored twice versus the Sounders, which the Sounders nowadays, if Pele came out there, you wouldn't get a ticket. You wouldn't get 50 feet to that close to that stadium. You wouldn't get anywhere near there. They are so huge. They're as popular as the Seahawks out there. But at that point in time, the Seahawks or the Sounders were just starting. Pele comes out. They love the team, but they also love their new kingdom, which has no frills, no luxury. It's called a blood and guts sports venue.
Ugh.
You know
Disgusting.
what my favorite memory of the Kingdom is? I mean,
We heard about her.
besides that, uh, was Bo Jackson having that huge game against the Seahawks when he was with the
Yes.
Raiders, and he had that
Yes.
one touchdown run where he like ran into the tunnel,
Yep.
disappeared from sight.
Yeah. Another great call by Al
Oh,
Michaels. He says something like, there goes Bo, and nobody catches Bo.
and was it in '95? Was it the Mariners who had the huge lead, or the Angels had the huge lead and lost it?
Oh,
Yeah, Mark,
Bill,
Mark,
who
thanks.
was it?
Mark, stop it. Come on, man. You won't talk about Bannister not winning a game, and then you want a 3.5 game lead on August 15th, and then you're going to go against Randy Johnson in a 1 game playoff?
Yeah, yeah.
Seven strike, there you go. Yeah, I don't remember that at all. Yeah.
Oh God,
I'm
I
going to get
felt
off that
bad.
for 1 second. Here's an interesting thing about Pelé.
Okay.
Every state that Pelé went to back in 76, after the game, his jersey was either ripped off or he started handing them to specific people. The Kingdome, when they played the Sounders, was the only place where he was able to get out of the stadium with his jersey on. So the Sounders called and got the jersey sent back, which they have in their Hall of Fame somewhere in downtown Seattle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because I did see that, Pele was doing Pele type things at this game. I mean, goals and humiliating the defenders, but that he did not give away his jersey afterward. So they got it anyway. Interesting.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
they called the Cosmos and said, "Hey, we need that jersey," and he sent it to him.
nice, nice. They say the Sounders, meanwhile, looked like a team that had just met each other in the parking lot. So it was not,
Probably had.
it was Bill and a bunch of his buddies at midnight at the local liquor store coming to, hey, you want to play some soccer? Sure, sure.
Who's here? Peel?
Yeah.
Who's this Peel guy?
Religion and sport. We all remember these guys. The athletes in action. They mix basketball with evangelism, turning halftime into a sermon, much to the crowd's "let's go get a Coke" enthusiasm. So it was an idea to try and mix religion and sports, which
Mhm.
has long been, I would say a good third of athletes, when they are asked a post-game question, the first thing that they say is they give praise to their Lord and Savior. No problem. I
Mhm.
have no problem with that if they want to do that. But this was a more um, real evangelical way of trying to mix the two. And I don't know if it worked or not.
Well, the one thing that hasn't changed, you go to watch a football game today, especially a college game, and at the end of the game or an NFL game, you'll see players go to the middle of the field and get down on a knee and
That's right.
pray from both teams and hold hands. And it's very common today.
Tim Tebow did it at Florida.
Yes.
He was in charge of those. So I just wonder if because you hear the guys after the stadium get in the field or talk about how they're thankful, but I wonder if they still have the father come in and do this prayer prior to games.
Whistles blow, legends grow. For the record.
For the record, Mark.
For the record, okay, Andy Messersmith signing a 3-year deal with the Braves for a whopping, I mean a whopping, remember 1976 prices, $1 million over 3 years. I know, hard to believe. It's like an Austin Powers movie. And we'll ransom them for $1 million. And they all laughed at
Right.
him. But that's what Andy Messersmith got, and he was actually an all-star in 76 because I think that you had to have an all-star from the Braves that year. So he was one that was picked. He didn't have a particularly good year, but
Yeah, so he got a million for 3 years, which comes out to just about $350,000. So about 35 starts, about 10,000 a start. Now pitchers get about a million a start, the really good ones.
right, right. And then he was 2 years in Atlanta, and then went to the New York, and um, I'm trying to think, did he end with the Dodgers? I think he might have ended his
I don't
career
think
with
he
the
was ever
Dodgers.
that good again after leaving LA, though.
Yeah, that's probably.
He's still around, isn't he?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Boston will have to start its Stanley Cup war without Bobby Orr, whose injured knee will prevent him from playing. Even without Orr, the Bruins were able to beat the LA Kings in a 7-game series to advance to the semifinals. So let's talk some 70s hockey with a real behind-the-scenes hockey guy. Pete Demers spent decades as the head trainer for the LA Kings, the guy who taped up ankles, stitched up faces, kept those players on the ice through all the blood and bruises of the old NHL. He's in the LA Kings Hall of Fame, inducted back in 1997 as an inaugural member. And in the April 5th, 1976 Sports Illustrated, they even ran a hilarious injury diary on one of his defensemen, and Pete was the man behind it all. Pete, welcome to the show. We are excited to hear your stories from those crazy days back in the 70s.
Well, thanks, Scott and Bill and Mark. It's great to be on.
Hey, Pete, in that April 5th, 1976 SI, there was a piece that ran a full injury diary on defenseman Bob Murdoch that we went through completely here on the show a couple weeks back. He had the flu, he had rashes, you stitched up his jaw, fractured nose, sprained ligaments. The list was endless. Did that kind of brutal injury log feel normal for an NHL season back then?
Absolutely. Yeah, those guys they get banged up, but they are really tough. They are really tough.
Is that somewhat of a badge of honor for them to like be, to no matter what, like we mentioned, we went through about 30 different things with Bob Murdoch, and then the last thing that Bill says is, "Oh yeah, by the way, he didn't miss a game that year."
Yeah, yeah, they're a unique group, but I think it all starts with character. They have amazing character, and it's from their families. Like if you're a baseball player or a basketball player, they just throw the ball outside. The parents do, and kids play. But in hockey, it's families are involved. You got a lot of teammates. There's early practices in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. These kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, 10 years old, they're out of bed and into the car, and they're at the rink and early in the morning and late at night sometimes, and weekends they're going to different games, and that builds a strong camaraderie and the sense of family with not only the players but all the families that are involved.
In 76, the Kings are playing a Bruins team without legendary Bobby Orr. Was the feeling around the league that if a guy like Orr couldn't play, then he must be really hurt?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, they don't want to be out of a game. In fact, I kind of always say we have to protect them from themselves. They want to play so bad that it would be a disadvantage to them and to the team to allow them to play, and so we have to hold them back. They're waiting at the door in the morning when you get there. They're waiting for their treatment time, and yeah, they're wired to play constantly.
Yeah, I know from being a Kings fan for 50 plus years, there's some tough guys in that league. But who is the toughest player you ever had to manage, not just treat, but manage?
We had a lot of tough guys. They rolled quite a few fighters, but that's changed now because it's such a big business. There's so much money involved that there's still fights, but not like they were. But like Dave Hutchison, Dan Maloney, Marty McSorley, probably the toughest guy. Rated still, I think he's rated at 1 or 2 behind Bob Probert, and Marty, a tough guy. In fact, I talk to him all the time still. He lives in Phoenix. If you want to buy a house, his house is for $20 million on the strength. Most of
Oh, good. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, we'll pull
I'm checking my bank account right now. Oh my gosh. So Pete, you just talk about fighting. Now, when I watch a game or at a game, I saw a fight, I saw it one way. How did you see a fight when you're on the bench? Or what are you looking at when you're seeing two guys face off?
I think I'm just looking at the same things that you guys would look at. But, I just worry or concerned about them falling and then twisting an ankle or their knee or landed on their head, and that's a big concern. As always, is concussions. Back in those days, the players were just expected to play all the time by the management. A lot of pressure on the management and a lot of pressure from the coaches. I don't want to get off our line of thought, but there's things that come to my head and I want to mention them. And you can scratch them later if you like. But it's just that they, like with a concussion, and it has kind of a joke that we had. We'd hold up how many fingers? The guy would say 2. Close enough. Go play. Now it's completely changed. It's completely changed. There's a spotter in the press box. The trainers with headsets on, and if the trainer sees anything abnormal with a player, and those concussion spotters will be in the press box, and they'll radio down to the trainer that that guy just fell in case you didn't see him, or he hit his head or banged his shoulder. And so this great support by the league now. There was so much pressure on players to play because, especially with concussions, you don't really realize, you don't know, the player looks normal and he acts normal, but there's one thing that's notable on concussion. They all say the same thing: I don't feel right. So we have to keep our eye on those kind of injuries.
Now obviously you were back with the Kings in the 70s. You did so much in terms of not just being a trainer. Tell me what it was like to work for the Kings back in those days.
Well, it was kind of a one-man show, or one helper. We had one guy to help us, and it was just 2 of us, and we were, I can give you the list of the jobs. I didn't write them down, but trainer, assistant trainer, massage therapist, physical therapist, strength coach, nutrition counselor, all those jobs, one guy had it, and one guy had all the responsibility. But now everything has changed so much. There's all those same categories now. We have support for that. There's 8 guys traveling on the road, also equipment manager. So all those hats the head trainer wore and back in those days. So, but I have a feeling of guilt that I'm still carrying with me, that I couldn't take care of my players the way I really wanted to take care of them because there's so many other things going on. Then you get calls from, or a player will come in and say, hey, my wife's sick. Can you get her to the doctor right away? Or my dad's in Toronto, and can you line him up with an orthopedic doctor to see? And the phone rings, and you're trying to order sticks, and so it takes away from trying to do your job with real dignity, and trainers can do that now because the ownership finally realized that we need support. We need good support and good people behind us. So they have all these jobs. Now there's more staff in the team picture than there is players.
You also, you were also the equipment manager?
In the beginning, I was, yes.
What did that entail?
Well, that entailed especially the sticks, because sticks, the wooden sticks, everybody's stick was different. This much hook, that different lie on the stick, and some like them stiff, some like them whippy, some like a longer shaft, some like the blade a different way. And so we have to do all that. So that's thing that I did, and you have to keep all the gear in order, and all the jerseys taken care of. I used to take the jerseys out to near Watts at 1:00 in the morning after a game, and to have them, I dropped them off to be cleaned at the cleaner. And then we'd have to transfer the gear to the rink in Culver City after a game, or early as 6:00 in the morning. And no one knows about all these side things that we had to do. and then take care of the families also, and bring players in earlier in the morning to for their treatments. Get that out of the way before the other guys come. So after a game, the players go back and go to bed, and I go to Culver Rink with the gear and 9 trips up the stairs with the skates. We had an extra set of gear at the Culver practice rink, and and then run the jerseys out to be cleaned.
Wow. So, how did you get it to become a trainer? What path did this lead you to go in this direction for your career?
Okay, so just a little bit of background. When I got out of high school, one day, the next day went to the U.S. Air Force, served 4 years, traveled all over the world. I was with a reconnaissance group of planes, RB-47s. They're bombers that were converted into a reconnaissance. They put 3 seats in them where the bomb bay was, and that's where they took all different pictures, and we had detachments in Turkey, Okinawa, England, England and Alaska. So I traveled all over with them. But I've been around the rink since I was a little boy. I lived about a quarter mile from the Rhode Island Auditorium, so I was always a rink rat, and helping to clean the ice, and we could skate. They let us skate, and we'd help in the rink, and I was a stick boy for the visiting teams. So I had a little bit of hockey background. When I got out of the military, I went to work at Quonset Point Naval Air Station. It was a aircraft maintenance refitting of airplanes, and so I had that job, and so also the trainer for the Rhode Island Reds, Providence Reds at the time. He was getting older. He needed help. So I started working there, helping him, and then he was having health issues, and still working. But he said, I can't keep you on if you're not going to be able to make a commitment to be here all the time, because I was working 4 to 12 at the Naval Air Station, and then going home and having a rest and going back to the rink at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'd work till after practice, and work in the morning at 8 o'clock until about 1, and then I'd go home, have a rest, and go back to work at Naval Air Station. And it was really tough, but it came to a point where I had to make a decision on what to do to stick with the Navy job, which is great security for the rest of your life, which everybody was encouraging me to do, or go out and get a job that in the game in hockey that I loved. So I quit my job at the Naval Air Station, and people wanted me to see a psychiatrist because I bailed out of the military job. But then in the meantime, then I took my nights and I went to Brown University and University of Rhode Island. It took 4 years for me to get my National Athletic Trainers Association certification. But in the meantime, my mentor, George Army was his name. He was an amazing trainer. In fact, players would get cut. They would wait until the doctor left, and then George would sew them up. And he taught me how to stitch, and with oranges. We'd stitch oranges. Every few days we'd do that. And then I had my schooling to do too, and I finally got my certification. So I spent 3 years with him, and then he sent messages out to the lower league, international league, and I went to Columbus as a head athletic trainer for the Columbus Checkers in 1968. I stayed 1 year there, and then in 1969, we're all family. So I had so many connections with different trainers, and there was Frank Christie was a trainer in Buffalo, and I used to help him when he came in when I was a kid, and for years. And he called me and he said they're looking for a trainer in Springfield, the Kings farm team. So I went to Springfield, had an interview with Johnny Wilson, and they gave me that job, and I spent 3 years there with the Springfield Kings, the LA farm team. And then there was an expansion, and the trainer for the LA Kings, Norm Mackey, he went to Atlanta, and they called me up, and the rest is history.
Wow. So if it wasn't for the Flames, you may never have been the trainer for the Kings.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, it's I don't know. Everything fell into place for me. It was like meant to be. But boy, there was, we all need help along the way. There's always somebody that gives you a chance. That's what I always talk about. I get emotional when I talk about it because it's, without having a chance. And so people that gave me a chance, and there's several of them along the way, and I have to thank them. And then after that, it's just a lot of guys. I'll tell you, it's unbelievable good luck that you have to have, because we have no control over our fate or what's going to happen. Coach comes in, he wants his own trainer. So that trainer could be there for years and he'd be out. And then the ironic thing of it is that a year or so later, that coach gets fired. So another coach comes in, and so I don't want that guy's trainer. And so you need to have good GM, good ownership that realizes that, and have some good luck. I remember, I'll jump ahead now. When Wayne Gretzky came, Rogie Vachon was a GM, and Wayne told Rogie, I want my trainer from Edmonton, Peter Miller. And Rogie said, Pete Demers is our trainer. We're not switching. So anyway, it ended up that Peter Miller, he was the head athletic trainer in Edmonton. And so they brought him in as on equipment staff, co-equipment manager with Mark O'Neill. And they both worked together on the equipment. And that's the evolution. The trainers kind of dropped the responsibility of equipment. And we had another equipment manager. Now we had two with the Kings. And then Mark O'Neill left the Kings and went to the Ducks at the expansion as equipment manager. And Peter Miller stayed like 12, 14 years with the Kings.
So when you took the job in 1972 and you go through all these what ifs, did you ever in your wildest imagination think you would be there for 34 years and see all that you saw?
I had no idea at all. In the back of your mind, there's so many things that go along with a trainer keeping his job that's almost not fair, because I never saw a trainer score a goal, but they look around. I never saw a trainer get hurt, although I got hurt a few times. But we're not in that line of fire. We're not in those duties, but we're in the line of fire of replacing, of making a change. And so it's just complete luck. And they don't keep you around because you put their hat the way they want it or bring them their coffee. They keep you around because it's and there's two things. There's four things that come into mind when I think about that stuff. Is for a player, their whole life is on TA. So that's not what you might think it is. TA is not what you might think it is, but it's talent and attitude. That's what you look at. That's what they look at with a player, talent and attitude. With a trainer, it's loyalty and trust. So you build that over the years. So the longer you work and the longer you take care of your players and take care of your staff and the families, they realize that. And so I was able to just survive for 13 coaches, 6 GMs.
Wow.
And three or four owners.
You mentioned your 4-year commitment to the Air Force and then working at the Naval Station. How important was that connection to the military and the years you spent there that helped you in your later life and to achieve the things you did in your career?
I think, in the military, it's a structure, but I think it just goes back to your home training, your upbringing by your parents. I had great parents that were involved, and there were 5 boys, and I think it goes back to that. And then you learn those 2 things in the military is you learn that loyalty and trust in the military. You look around. I would look at my players, and is that a player I want in the foxhole next to me? That's kind of how we look at it as from a military standpoint. But it goes through life too. You want to surround yourself with good people, and I think that the team look down on their staff, and they know that they can depend on Pete Demers. So there's no ego. It's just that that's how we roll.
We're talking with Pete Demers, the longtime head trainer for the LA Kings, equipment manager, ticket taker, caterer. I think you worked the valet for a couple years. A lot of hats you were wearing back in the day, Pete. But I got to go back to something you just said about Rogie Vachon, and I get asked this question all the time. All 3 of us have been in the sports business basically our entire adult lives, and I get asked when I tell people that hockey players are the most different of the major 4 sports, and they're like, give me an example, and you just gave me a great one. If Aaron Judge gets traded and says, I want to bring my trainer with me, that trainer's going with him. If Tom Brady has a personal trainer and he goes to the Tampa Bay Bucks, Alex Guerrero, his trainer, is going with him. Wayne Gretzky goes to Rogie Vachon and says, I want my trainer from Edmonton to come with me. And Rogie Vachon says no. That is incredible to me. I mean, it just shows you not just the loyalty, but the character that is different, I believe, in the fabric of hockey players.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, it was Rogie's. As far as Rogie, it was his 75th birthday, I think, a couple of months ago. So they had a little podcast, and Tony Granato was on, and myself and Dave Taylor, and I told that story about when Gretz came in, and then Rogie said, "Yeah, well, we had our trust in Pete Demers, and we didn't want to change that." So that was luck. That was my real nugget, a pearl that I was lucky that I could get. It's just like if you're a coach, guy gets fired and he's got a job in another 2 weeks in another team, he's getting paid by 3 teams. This guy that's happened to, and but when a trainer loses his job, he might be tough to get a job somewhere else.
Well, part 2 of that equation is, egos are involved, and I imagine that once it became clear that was the way it was going to be, Gretzky just moved on. How was your relationship like with Wayne?
It was really good. I mean, he was a lucky guy in the fact that they gave him space. He didn't get banged up too much, but yeah, he was real easy to take care of and a real good guy, and a lot of pressure on him from the media. Even in the locker room, every morning there'd be a bunch of sticks on the table for him to sign and pictures to sign, and not only for the fans but all of us. We all had stuff, and everybody would bring that stuff to me. Hey, can you have Gretz sign this? I have a little saying that someone would get in touch with me and say, "Hey, Pete, you're my favorite trainer. Can you get me Wayne Gretzky's stick?"
Yeah, well, or Pat, you're my favorite trainer. They couldn't even get your name right, but you were at the top of the list.
Yeah.
You mentioned your background, Rhode Island, Columbus, Springfield, and then all of a sudden you're in LA, certainly not a hockey town upon your arrival. 15 years later or whatever it was, how different was it once they made that trade for Gretzky? It exploded here, didn't it?
Oh yeah. We used to have 8,000 people in the building. When Gretz came, boy, they came out in droves. It was unbelievable. And boy, was he, two people that come into mind is Marcel Dion and Wayne Gretzky. Those guys were so much fun to watch to play. And Gretz would come over he would come across the blue line on the right side, entering the offensive zone. He'd skate in about 15 feet inside the blue line, and he'd make a pirouette. And he'd do it all the time, turn around with the puck, and they still couldn't get him. I think it's just, and I watched him do that 100 times. And then they knew he was going to do that, but they're afraid to make a commitment to him, like afraid to go at him as a defenseman because he'll give them the howdy do and he's gone. So, but if you, from a viewpoint on the bench, a lot of times, you can do that right in your own office right now. You could look between three items, a coffee pot or a bowl or something, and you could see a space between there. So when you're on the ice looking, and only I could see it, other people could see that from their view, they could see. But night after night after night with Wayne, you could see where he was. And there might be a defenseman and another forward or something, and then the goalie's there, but there's a small little spot that's open, and he could see that. And everybody would say, and we all said, how does he do that? He played hockey with his brain, He wasn't the fastest skater or didn't have the hardest shot, but boy, was he fun to watch night after night.
Well, you saw him so many times with Edmonton do many amazing things against the Kings. What was the difference between seeing him with Edmonton and then seeing him all the time when he was with the Kings?
Happiness. He was on our team. Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah, and a nice guy, And but he always had time for everyone. But when the game time comes, he was tuned in to play. Played hockey with his brain.
But one of the guys that came in that trade was Marty McSorley. And your time as a trainer, you worked around a lot of tough guys: Schultz, Hutchison, McSorley, Matt Johnson. But one of the other guys that might have been arguably one of the toughest guys ever, was Tiger Williams. What was your relationship like with him, and what was he like in person?
He is a really good guy, man. I'll tell you, I have so many stories that, and sometimes half the time I'm crying when I'm telling these stories. So, but Tiger, he was a great guy. And when he quit playing, he was in LA, and he came to the training room, came in the dressing room, and it was morning skate time. They had their skate in the morning, and everybody was there getting dressed. And he said, he went out into the room, and he said, "Hey guys, I want to say a few words." He said, "See that guy in there, Pete Demers? If he tells me that any of you give him any trouble at all," he said, "you're going to have me to answer to." Yeah, just like that.
That was the end of that.
That was the end of that. He was a funny guy, but yeah, he came to play every night. He was hard as nails, tough as nails. Really good guy. And Marty McSorley, I talk to him every few weeks. He calls me, and he called me last year. He had called at one point and said, "Hey, come on down the beach." I said, "Well, your house is, we can't go in your house, right?" "No, we're not in my house. My house is still for sale. So we'll be on the beach. There's 3 or 4 guys coming," and Marty was there. So I went. Marty was there, and Chris Chelios, and a few other guys were there, and to be included, I didn't have a number on my back, but yet, and back in those days, the players would go for dinner. They would never, ever go for dinner as a group without inviting myself or my coworker. Always, just the way they are. They're character people, and it's so much fun. They're so motivated, and they're so motivated to, in a way that, like I said, they're waiting at the door in the morning. There's no resistance from them at all on their treatments, But that's one thing that I'll say it again that I really regret is that it took, the better part of my career before I could really do my job with dignity, because I was wearing so many hats, and you just kind of juggling stuff. And but now a trainer can really do his job, and sports medicine is so far advanced now. And but we had great doctors. That's another thing. And then the agents came along, and MRIs and second opinions, that changed the game a lot. And then of course the salaries.
I gotta go back a bit there, Pete. You said something. You said, I have some great stories with Tiger Williams. Can you relay one of those stories?
Okay. So we trained in Culver City. The dressing room was like 15 feet wide or 20 feet wide. And there was a big heater duct at the end of the room. Aluminum heater duct, taped up. Place was kind of a little on the ratty side, but it was good. It was good. And so he came in one day. He had a bow and arrow.
Of course.
Yeah, obviously.
But not one of those with all different wires and stuff on it. Just a regular one. He came in with that and took it out of the case. He got at one end of the room, and he shot the bow and arrow right down into the heater duct. No one could believe it.
I'm glad it didn't explode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen so much in your 34 years with the Kings. When you started, Jack Kent Cooke was the owner, and then Bruce McNall comes in, and I think the color scheme might have been tied to McNall, something different, something that separated from Jack Kent Cooke and the Lakers/Kings.
Exactly.
Purple and gold.
It was tied to Mr. McNall, yeah.
But what was the difference working as a trainer? Was there a difference if you're working under Jack Kent Cooke and then when Bruce McNall comes in and kind of changes things a bit?
Well, the difference in night and day between Mr. Cooke and Bruce McNall. Bruce McNall was just a regular hockey fan, and Jack Kent Cooke was a businessman. And you could go up to the front office, and there'd be a guy waiting out by the door. Vince was the cleanup guy in the locker room, but in the mornings he'd be up in the front of the building waiting for Mr. Cooke, and he'd run down the hallway. Mr. Cooke is coming. Mr. Cooke is coming. So they treated him, but I treated him also with a sore neck. And one day he called me and said, "Can you come and take care of me?" So I said, "Well, I got 3 players here I'm looking after right now." He said, "Well, I'll come down to the training room." So he came down to the training room, and then those players had left, and it was just him there, and he was on the table. He said to me, and he had a unique voice. Bob Miller's really good at it, our broadcaster, but he said, "We are going to sign Magic Johnson." And I said to myself, I don't care. Like I didn't really say that. I said something different to myself, but I can't care. Who is? I said, "Oh, that's wonderful, Mr. Cooke." I didn't know who Magic Johnson was. In fact, I never went to a Lakers game in my whole career. And I'll just jump to Kobe Bryant. I had a knee issue, and I was at the Pearl and Job, and Kobe Bryant was there, and he was on the next table to me, and And he said, "Hey, I heard, Pete, that you never been to a game, and when you want to go to a game, you let me know. I'll give you my tickets."
Wow.
Because I never went to a game. But yeah, the difference a night and day between Mr. Cook and Bruce McNall. Bruce McNall was a real generous guy. When I had 1,500 games, he gave me 1,500 Silver Eagles.
Wow.
Yeah. Ended up selling them for $7 each. It's too bad I didn't save them for. But and he also, we were on a plane. We had a plane that he bought from the president of Mexico, and so we were on the plane one day, and I knew that he had this bike, this Harley Davidson, with Kings on the front, on the tanks, and all painted beautiful. His staff gave it to him for his birthday, and I asked him, "Hey, Bruce, do you ever ride that bike?" And of course, you just call Bruce, and you call Mr. Cook, Mr. Cook. But he said, "No." He said, "I don't ride it." He said, "Why don't you come and take it for a ride?" So I went to his house in Bel Air sometime, after that road trip or something, and I picked up that bike, and I rode it for a couple of weeks, and I saw him on a charter, and a couple of weeks later, and said, "I'm going to bring the bike back." He said, "No." He said, "I was wondering what I was going to give you for your longevity." And so yeah, he gave me that Harley Davidson. He was a really, really good guy. He'd be out trading cards with the card guys at 2:00 in the morning after our plane came into a city. The autograph seekers would be around because they wanted to see Wayne. We could pull up to a hotel on a beautiful, nice, bright, sunny day at noontime. There wouldn't be any autograph seekers, but you could pull up to a hotel in Detroit and it'd be in a blizzard outside, and there'd be 25 of them waiting for the bus. Bruce would sit on the curbstone and just chat with the fans, and just a regular guy.
I wish we were buddies, because then I could have ridden with that Harley Davidson, and I could have gone with you and sat in Kobe's seats at Laker games. That would have been a blast. So 1993, the Kings finally get to the Stanley Cup Finals. You get to go to the finals. You guys didn't win, but what was the experience of finally getting to go to the Stanley Cup, and then after you retired, watching them win those two titles?
Well, yeah, it was a long road. We were. I kind of say, I have a saying. I've seen more bad hockey than anyone in the history of the league. But that was so exciting. Yeah. That was amazing. It's a journey that all these teams, 30 teams, and the only two teams get a chance to go to the finals, and we got lucky with Toronto and went to the finals, but it just didn't work out for us. They blame Marty's stick, and they blame me. I see that on the internet lots of times. Well, Pete Demers should have checked all the sticks. Well, everybody's responsible for their own sticks. And that's something that there's a stick gauge. You can measure your stick. But anyway, for the people that don't know, Marty had an illegal stick, and they called a penalty on it and changed the outcome of that game. But then after that, we didn't score any goal. We didn't score enough goals to win. They don't say how, they say how many, and we just didn't have things didn't go out. The bounce didn't go our way.
Yeah, but the beauty is then they ended up finally ending that drought in 2012, and then again in 2014. So you had to have been proud, just.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I was up in the press box, and I'm hoping I can get through this. But so I had a can of beer, and I had a can of beer that I had saved in the drawer. And I saved it for the finals. And in 1993, I drank that can of beer. I saved it for years and years. It was like 15 years old or something, and I saved it. And we went to the finals. I drank that beer before, and so then I had another beer that in 1993 that I saved until we win the cup. But then we didn't win the cup. So that night the Kings won the cup. I brought that beer with me in a paper bag. And Tim Lywicki was in the press box, and he brought me down to the locker room, and I poured that beer into the cup, and Jared Stoll held the cup up and poured the beer in, and it was the best tasting beer I ever had. It was amazing. Okay, so Olympia beer.
Okay.
So Olympia in 93 and the Budweiser in 2012?
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote on there, save for the finals. And then we went to the final. The Kings went to the finals, and so, but I waited until they won the cup because I didn't have I wasn't on the team exactly then. Still doing stuff for them also, but this is the beer that they poured.
Wow.
There was lots of stories about that too. But this beer, I had it for so long waiting to.
It's the water.
Yeah.
Wow. It doesn't matter how flat the beer is. That probably would be the best tasting beer ever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Rains on fire, questions fly. Lightning strikes as answers try. Buzzers ring, chaos in the air. Trivia time, truth or dare.
You know, I never did find out. You mentioned you had to earn his. Did you have to earn his trust? Because he didn't bring his trainer on to be the trainer. He was an equipment guy. So did you have to earn the trust with Wayne before he said, yeah, you're my trainer?
Well, by the time Wayne came to the Kings, I guess I had my credibility already established.
It'd be like getting a Hall of Fame manager. You're going to a different manager, but it's a Hall of Fame. But here's my trivia question for you, okay, about Wayne Gretzky, okay? True or false? Wayne Gretzky once appeared on the soap opera All My Children as a mobster.
I don't know.
You had a 50-50 chance?
Okay, false.
It is false, but it's a trick question. Wayne Gretzky on November 12th, 1989 appeared on The Young and Restless as a mobster, and he was introduced as Wayne out of their Edmonton operation. So
a different soap opera.
Yes.
Yes, it was a different soap opera, The Young and the Restless. But he was on the soap opera, and as great a hockey player as Wayne was, the opposite applies to him as an actor, just to let you know.
That was not his strength?
No. There was no power play involved there. He was shorthanded.
Hey, you mentioned real quick, Pete, in passing, Bob Miller. And Bill says that Bob used to always mention you on the broadcast.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with the legendary Kings broadcaster?
Yeah, I mean, he's the person that if I had to pick one person on the Kings that I'm the closest with, is Bob Miller. Bob and Judy, they're lifelong friends. Yeah, great guy, and great sense of humor. Always got a joke. Yeah.
Greatest broadcaster ever.
Yeah,
he was
that's
my
right,
childhood, and he always introduced you before the game. He'd say the Kings head coach, assistant coaches, and there's Pete Demers, the trainer. So I grew up with you. He was just the best, a kind man, fantastic on the air.
Yeah. Yeah, he lives out in Simi Valley now, and he's doing okay as far as I know. I talk to him every few weeks.
You know, Pete, you gave your life to the world of hockey. In addition to the LA Kings Hall of Fame, Pete is in the Professional Hockey Athletic Trainers Society Hall of Fame, the Rhode Island Hockey Hall of Fame, the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. So it's nice to see that they gave back to you as well. They appreciated what you did We appreciate you coming on here. We would like nothing more than to go sit in those Kobe seats with you and drink a beer with you. You've been a blast. Thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Okay, I'd be glad to chat with you guys anytime, and I'm honored that you would think of me and have me on your show, and maybe we can do this again.
That'd be
And
great.
please,
We would love it.
okay.
Thank you
And
so
Pete,
much,
thank-
Pete.
There's so many questions I didn't get to.
Yeah, and Pete, thank you for everything you did for our country. I know we didn't get a chance to touch on that a little bit, but thank you.
Real people, real stories. Faces in the crowd.
Faces in the crowd. Mark.
Well, I've got Johnny Jones. He's a senior at Lampasas.
Yeah,
I
that
thought I said
sounds good.
right, Texas. Yeah, he's a long jumper. He ran a 9.300, big track guy. But I remember him more for football, even though he did win a gold medal in the 4x100 meter relay at the '76 Summer Games. But at Texas, he was known as Johnny Lamb Jones, and he was just a dynamic player. And then he played in the NFL for many years for the Jets and the Cowboys. So he was a track and a football guy.
What about Joel Benjamin, Billy?
Joel Benjamin, just a little guy. He was ranked first in the nation in chess for the under 13s. And in 1998, he was voted Grand Master of the Year by the U.S. Chess Federation. But the thing about chess, you and I, all three of us played chess against each other all day. One of the things he always used when he played was that Black Knight's Tango. Unbelievable. It converted very small advantages into a win, which Mark uses all the time.
I do.
Damn, when he uses the Black Knight's
The Black
Tango.
Knight's Tango is unbeatable.
It is. And Mark uses it on a consistent basis, and I don't want to play him anymore.
I do. When we had the Swedish border Julian, I played him in chess one time. He won in the span of 20 seconds. That's faster than I was kicked out of choir.
Dang, did he really?
Yeah. I know moves in chess. I just don't know the strategy. Maybe I need to watch the Queen's Gambit some more.
Maybe you need to figure out what the Black Knight's Tango is. Start taking him down.
Hey, this is some great news for Sports Illustrated, guys, because the 19th hole mark, the jinx, is
The 19th
over.
hole is open for law.
It is. I feel so much better. Randall J. Petridis, Petridis, could be Petrides too, from South Bend, Indiana, said, okay, Oklahoma shattered your cover jinx by winning the national championship in spite of your overall preseason cover being number one predicted. Indiana won the basketball title in spite of being a number one rated and 2 covers. Michigan was the victim in each of the title games, though. So you can repay the Wolverines by putting them on this year's September issue so we can win the championship.
Well, I don't think they did that.
They didn't.
Maybe they put them on this year's.
Right? Maybe.
A tradition like no other, from Raymond Floyd slipping on the green jacket in '76 to $1.50 sandwiches that somehow never changed. We're talking Ron Say locking down third to a packed Kingdom. Mark getting it on with Steve Largent. It's all right here, just the way we remember it. And a special thanks to Pete Demers for joining us and taking us inside those wild days of hockey. For Mark Hoffman, for Bill Hoffman, for Bill Mahoney. I'll get it right one of these days.
My
keep
brother
that one
from
in.
another
Keep
mother.
that in. Keep that in. I love Mark.
I'm Scott Hoffman, and we are past our prime.
Go Hoffman, go Hoffman, go Hoffman.
Hey, Joel, I got Black Knight's Tango in.